The dress had arrived in a delicate ivory box, tissue paper folded like flower petals around the satin. I'd paid for it with the last of my savings. Not that anyone said thank you. Not my sister, not my mother. Not even a text. They just smiled. During the fitting, called me a saint, and asked if I could help him the sleeves that weekend. I did, of course. I always did, because when it came to them, I'd learned it was easier to go along than to ask questions. Questions made people uncomfortable, especially in my family. I was the eldest daughter, not the golden one. That was Rachel. I was the dependable one, the responsible one, the one who didn't complain. Rachel's wedding was scheduled for the end of June. A destination ceremony on the coast of Maine, white cliffs and blue hydrangeas. She'd wanted it since we were kids, flipping through bridal magazines while I did dishes. Our parents never said no to her, but they did say, "Let's ask Mia if she can help." So Mia helped. I sourced the calligrapher, coordinated, the florist, even secured a discount on the reception hall thanks to a friend from college. Rachel cried when she saw the place, said it was perfect. I smiled and paid the deposit, $3,000, half of my rent savings. "You're so good to us," Mom said, her hand brushing my shoulder like I was a puppy that brought her slippers. I didn't even get a +1 on the save the date. The first red flag waved when Rachel created the bridal WhatsApp group and didn't add me. I found out about the fitting, schedule from our cousin Melanie, who asked if I was going to the brunch afterward. Brunch? I hadn't even known there was a brunch. When I asked Rachel about it, she said, "Oh, I thought you were busy with work stuff. I didn't want to overwhelm you." Overwhelm me. I was overwhelmed, yes. Just not from what she thought. I was working 2 part-time jobs and tutoring on weekends to afford my own groceries, all while fronting expenses for her dream wedding. And now I was being politely erased. I told myself I was being sensitive, until I saw the guest list. It was printed, not digital. A glossy trifold of names arranged by table. I found it in the kitchen when I was home one weekend. Rachel and Mom had left it out next to a cake tasting order sheet. I scanned the list out of habit, looking for familiar names. Melanie, Uncle Charles, Rachel's high school friend Ashley, even Rachel's old babysitter, who I hadn't seen in a decade. But not me. I flipped the page. I read it twice. I scanned the family table. Then I read it again. My name wasn't there. That night, I sat across from my mom at dinner and waited for her to mention it. She didn't, so I asked, "Did you leave me off the guest list by accident?" She didn't look up from her green beans. "Oh, honey, it's just that..." Rachel felt it might be a little awkward. I blinked. Awkward how? She said you'd be busy, and... Well, you know how things get with you two. You tend to criticize. "I planned the wedding," I said, my voice flat. "I paid for her dress. I booked the reception." "She appreciated that," Mom said quickly. "But we just didn't want to risk any tension. You know how sensitive she is, Rachel." Sensitive. The girl who threw a tantrum over the frosting shade on her cupcakes. I felt something hollow inside me shift. Not break. Shift. Like something I'd known for a long time was finally giving up the act. I pushed my chair back. "I see." Mom sighed. "Don't be dramatic, Mia. You're still invited to the after party." The after party. The scraps. I didn't fight. I didn't scream. I didn't ask for the money back. Instead, I went home that night and opened my laptop. Then I started pulling receipts, itemized lists, bank transfers, emails, copies of vendor contracts. Every single thing I'd done for Rachel's wedding. And quietly, without telling anyone, I called the venue. The woman who answered at the venue was named Clara. She sounded young, maybe in her 20s, with a voice like sunshine and customer service training. Hi there. Thank you for calling Meadow House Events. How can I help you today? I hesitated just for a second before slipping into the calm, professional voice I used for work. Yes. Hello. I'm following up on the Townsend Evans wedding booking for June 28th. My name is Mia Townsend. I handled the contract and deposit. She paused to type. Yes. Rachel Townsend and Marcus Evans. Confirmed for June 28th. Reception starting at 5:30 p.m. We've been working with the bride and her mother on final guest logistics. Is there something we can help you with? I inhaled. Yes. I'm actually the original point of contact and the one who signed and paid the initial deposit on the booking. I'd like to confirm the outstanding balance and see who's been listed as the account holder. Another pause. Let me just check that. Okay. The initial deposit was made under Mia Townsend. That's you. It looks like a new email was added last month to the account, diana.townsend@familyeggmail.com. She's listed now as the active planner. I smiled bitterly. That's my mother. Clara hesitated. Would you like us to revert the primary contact to you? Yes, I said. And I'd also like to request a copy of the invoice and any charges billed since the deposit. Could you send them to this email? I gave her my address. Then I added, also, if no one settles the outstanding balance by the payment deadline, I'd like the reservation to be canceled, per the original agreement terms. Clara cleared her throat. That would cancel the wedding. Just confirming. Yes, I said softly. Just confirming. The next morning, I received the full statement. They still owed $6,150. And the deadline? June 1st. I circled the date. For the next few weeks, I played the role of invisible sister, with Oscar-worthy precision. When Rachel texted me passive-aggressive questions about where that Pinterest link was, or how many charger plates you ordered, I responded politely. I didn't say I'd seen the revised guest list again, and still wasn't on it. When Mom called and asked if I'd drive 2 hours upstate to pick up custom candles she forgot to order online, I went. I even brought coffee, and when I passed the mirror before leaving their house that day, saw the reflection of a tired, used-up daughter wearing a smile like armor, I smiled wider. Because they had no idea. They thought I was sulking quietly, licking wounds like a good girl. They didn't know I'd been copying receipts and forwarding contracts to myself like breadcrumbs on the trail back to my worth. Then came the day I knew I wouldn't forget. I was in the car when Rachel called, breathless. Mia? Where's the final venue confirmation? They said they're waiting on something. Did you forget to pay them? I kept my voice even. I'm not the planner anymore, remember? She clicked her tongue. Ugh, I know. But Mom said you had all the info. They won't answer our emails. I'm not surprised, I said calmly. They don't work with unauthorized contacts. That's in the contract. A pause. Wait, what are you talking about? I slowed the car, pulled into a rest stop. I'm still the account holder, Rachel. I signed the agreement. My money secured your date, and the remaining balance hasn't been paid. Silence. Then, Mia, you're Not seriously. I'm seriously no longer covering anything for a wedding I've been excluded from, I said. And if no one pays that invoice by June 1st, there's no wedding at Meadow House. You're bluffing. I'm not. You can't do this to me. I hung up. By nightfall, my phone was vibrating like a dying animal. Texts from Rachel, then Mom, then Marcus, then Dad, who rarely involved himself, but suddenly remembered he had 2 daughters. I didn't respond, not until the group chat lit up with Mom. Mia, this is very unkind. You've done so much already. Why ruin it? Now, we'll talk about this later. Rachel, you're being spiteful because you didn't get invited. Grow up. It's my day. Marcus, this isn't how family treats each other. It's just money. Let it go. I typed and deleted a dozen messages. Then I sent one. You're right. Family doesn't treat each other this way. You all showed me that. First, they thought I'd fold. They didn't understand that I'd already done all the giving I was ever going to do. By the end of the week, I knew they were panicking. Rachel had posted a cryptic story on Instagram, a blurry selfie in the bridal suite with a caption, "Can't believe people you love can turn on you like that." Fake family. She didn't. Name me. She didn't have to. The comments were full of sympathy. Girl, you deserve better. Cut the toxicity out before the big day. My cousin did this too. Jealousy is real. I didn't respond. I just watched. It was almost funny. After all the years of keeping her secrets, making excuses for her when she blew up at waiters, or cried her way out of parking tickets, I was now the villain in her little social media soap opera. I checked the venue balance again, still unpaid. Still due in 5 days. On the 3rd day, Mom showed up at my apartment. She didn't call first, just knocked, holding a Tupperware of lemon bars like we were still in middle school and I'd just failed a math test. "Sweetheart," she said, eyes already glossed over. "Can we talk?" I let her in. She sat on the edge of my sofa like she was afraid it might collapse. I stood. "I know you're upset," she began. "I know this feels unfair." "It is unfair," I said. She winced. "Okay." I didn't mean to dismiss. "You all excluded me, after I paid for everything." "Not everything," she said quickly. "We all helped." I tilted my head. "You mean when you offered to handle the rehearsal dinner but then asked if I could put it on my card, just until Thursday?" She said nothing. I folded my arms. "What do you want, Mom?" She sighed. "I want you to stop this. Rachel is heartbroken. She thinks you're trying to destroy her wedding." I looked her dead in the eyes. "Rachel destroyed it the moment she took my name off the list and expected me to keep paying. You're punishing all of us over a mistake." "Don't," I said quietly. "Don't call it a mistake. It was a decision. You all made it together. Now I'm making mine." Her face hardened. "You're going to feel terrible if this ruins everything." I already feel terrible. I've felt terrible for years. I just never said anything. She stood up, lemon bars still in hand. "Fine," she said, voice tight. "But if you do this, Mia, you can't take it back." I opened the door. "Good," I said, "because I won't want to." The deadline came. They didn't pay. I waited until 11:59 p.m. on June 1st. Then I forwarded the final cancellation confirmation to Rachel's email. No more venue, No cliffside ceremony, no hydrangeas, no reception hall that I booked, planned, and paid for. Gone. Legally. Neatly. The next day, silence. Then came a voicemail from Rachel. I didn't answer, but I listened. You are sick, Mia. You need help. You ruined the most important day of my life. Everyone knows what you did. I hope you feel proud. I hope you feel powerful. Then her voice cracked. I just wanted one day. That was about me. I stared at the wall. It always was. That evening, Melanie messaged me privately. Hey. I heard what happened. I know no one will say it, but you didn't deserve that. I always noticed how much you did. Just wanted you to. No, I didn't cry, but something loosened in my chest, just slightly, like a knot finally letting go. 3 days later, a new venue was announced in a mass email blast. An indoor hall 2 towns over. Cheaper. Plainer. No coastal view. I wasn't invited. But this time, they didn't pretend it was a mistake, and I didn't pretend to care. The revised wedding took place on a cloudy Saturday afternoon. No white cliffs, no ocean breeze, just a rental hall behind a golf course with a gravel parking lot and plastic white chairs that clacked when people sat down too hard. I wasn't there, but photos made their way to me anyway. That's how it always goes. People send things by accident or out of concern, pretending it's helpful when really they just want to see how you'll react. Rachel's smile in the photos was tight. Not sad exactly, just rigid. Like someone trying to hold a perfect pose while her foundation melted under fluorescent lights. The cake looked smaller than the original. The dress was still the one I paid for. A pang twisted in my chest when I saw that. Not because I wanted the dress back, but because of how she wore it without shame. How easily she carried the cost of my sacrifice like it had always belonged to her. But the real gut punch came when I saw the table cards. Neatly printed, carefully arranged. One of them said, family table. Another one said cousins. There wasn't a card for me, not even at the back, not even as an afterthought. The silence after the wedding was almost louder than the months of planning before it. No thank you, no follow-up, no apology. It was as if I had never existed, except when they needed something. 2 weeks later, I got a text from my dad. Dad. Hey kiddo, can you call when you're free? Want to run something? By you, I hesitated. My father rarely reached out without a reason. Growing up, he was more of a background presence. Distant, but not cruel, like a polite stranger who happened to live in the same house. I called him after work. Hi, Dad. He cleared his throat. Hey, Mia. Just wondering if you'd be open to maybe letting things go a little. Rachel's having a hard time right now. I leaned against my kitchen counter. Is she? She and Marcus were hoping to do a honeymoon this fall, but with the extra costs, they're a bit tight. And your mom mentioned you might still have some of the vendor connections. Could help them save a bit if you'd be willing. I let out a short laugh. You want me to plan their honeymoon now? He paused. Not plan, just maybe advise. Like you used to. Be the bigger person. The bigger person. That phrase had followed me like a leash my entire life. I was the bigger person when Rachel stole my college acceptance letter and read it out loud at dinner, mocking my essay. I was the bigger person when she borrowed my clothes, lost them, and blamed me for not reminding her. I was the bigger person every single time they needed me to be useful, but never present. And now they wanted me to extend one more favor so Rachel could sit in a hammock in Bora Bora while pretending her dream wedding hadn't cracked at the seams. "Dad," I said quietly, "I think I'm done being the bigger person." There was silence on the line. Then a sigh. "That's disappointing to hear." "No," I replied. "What's disappointing is that it took me 28 years to say it." I hung up. I thought that would be the end of it. But endings don't come that clean in my family. That Friday, a charge showed up on my card, $417.36, from a boutique spa resort in Napa. I stared at it, heart thudding. It was a card I hadn't used in months. One I'd given to Rachel during wedding planning because she kept forgetting her wallet. I had frozen the card after canceling the venue, but I hadn't closed the account. Apparently, she'd found a way in. The next morning, I drove straight to the bank, filed a fraud report, flagged the card, froze the account for good. I didn't call her. I didn't yell. But I did one thing. I forwarded the email trail, every receipt, every charge, every misuse of my financial information, to a lawyer I'd met once during a vendor negotiation, and then I filed a civil claim. I wasn't after the money anymore. I was after the line, the one I was finally drawing in permanent ink. The summons was delivered on a Tuesday. I didn't plan it that way. I just wanted it filed, official, out of my hands and into the system. But there was something poetic about the timing. Tuesdays had always been Rachel's mental health day. She never worked on Tuesdays. Said she needed space to reset from how emotionally draining the world was. She got her space. She just didn't expect it to come in a legal envelope. I expected rage. What I got was silence. At first. Then, 3 days later, a voicemail from Mom, tearful, shaking, dramatic. "Mia, what are you doing? This is not how families resolve things. We raised you better than this." "Suing your own sister?" I didn't respond. Then Rachel texted. No punctuation. All lowercase. "So this is who you are now. Cool guess, I never knew you." And finally, a long-winded email from Marcus, trying to reason with me like I was some unhinged lunatic instead of the woman whose card his wife had fraudulently used after uninviting her from the wedding she funded. I didn't reply to him either. Instead, I let the process begin. Court was scheduled for early August. It was small claims, no jury, no drama. But it was official. And official was what I needed. Because up until that point, everything I'd done for my family, every favor, every sacrifice, had been invisible, expected, forgotten. Now, it was all there, on paper. On record. Melanie came with me the day of the hearing. She offered before I even asked. "I've seen what they've done to you," she said. "And frankly, I'm tired of pretending like it's okay." We sat outside the courthouse in a quiet hallway with fluorescent lights and scuffed tile floors. Rachel arrived 10 minutes late, wearing oversized sunglasses and a designer purse she absolutely did not pay for herself. Marcus followed behind, her hands in his pockets, looking everywhere but at me. She didn't say a word when she passed. Neither did I. But I could feel the weight of her fury pulsing off her like steam. She was used to having the last word, to controlling the narrative, to me bowing out quietly when things got messy. Not this time. The judge was a middle-aged woman with calm eyes and a voice like a mother who'd heard it all. Rachel tried to spin it, said I'd offered to cover things, that we'd agreed to share resources, that this was a family misunderstanding. Then I pulled out the receipts. The itemized spreadsheet of every charge I'd fronted, every expense I'd never been reimbursed for, the screenshots of texts, the call logs, the bank statement with the spa charge, the frozen card report, even the original venue contract with my signature and only mine. The judge looked at Rachel, then at me. "Did they repay you for any of this?" she asked. "No, Your Honor." "And the spa charge?" "Unauthorized." Rachel shifted in her chair. The judge gave a small nod. "Then this isn't a misunderstanding. This is restitution." She ruled in my favor. I was awarded $8,032.60. Rachel looked like she might scream. But she didn't. Not there. Not in front of strangers who wouldn't coddle her or tell her she was the golden girl. She stormed out. Marcus didn't follow. Not right away. Instead, he lingered for a second near the door. Then he looked at me and muttered, "You really had to humiliate her?" I didn't flinch. "She did that to herself," I said. He left. It wasn't about the money. Not anymore. It was about finally being seen, heard, counted. It was about the version of me they'd erased, the one who gave and never asked for anything. Finally standing still long enough to say, "Enough." Later that night, Melanie and I split a bottle of wine on my fire escape. The city buzzed below, indifferent to the quiet justice that had unfolded hours earlier. "You did it," she said, clinking her glass against mine. I did. "And how do you feel?" I thought for a moment. "I feel like I just moved out of a house I didn't know I'd been trapped in." She smiled. "Good." August turned into September, and for the first time in years, the silence in my life wasn't empty. It was peaceful. I stopped waiting for a call, stopped checking for apologies that would never come. I even stopped rehearsing fake forgiveness speeches in the shower. It's strange, the kind of space you discover in yourself when guilt no longer rents out every corner. I started sleeping better, eating better, laughing even. Real, breath from your gut, kind of laughing. Melanie and I grew closer, bonded not just by blood, but by what we'd both quietly survived in that family. She told me stories I hadn't known. Times Rachel had smeared my name at family dinners when I wasn't there, twisted my words to make herself look like a martyr. It didn't even shock me anymore. It just confirmed what I'd already learned. I hadn't lost a sister. I'd simply stopped pretending I ever had one. Then came the email. A subject line so sterile it could have come from a lawyer. Family meeting requested. This Sunday. It was from Mom. Sent to me, Dad, Rachel, and Melanie. No greeting, no context. Just an address, our childhood home, and a time, 3:00 p.m. I didn't respond. I didn't delete it either. I just stared at it every day until Sunday arrived, unsure if I'd go. And then, 5 minutes before the meeting, I found myself in the driveway. The house hadn't changed. Same beige siding. Same chipped flower pots on the porch. Same wind chime near the kitchen window. The one that always rattled whenever someone opened the fridge too hard. Inside, they were already seated. Rachel looked smug and guarded, arms crossed like she was preparing for battle. Mom wore her best peacemaker face, which really just meant a smile barely masking control. Dad, to his credit, looked uncomfortable. He always did in moments like these, emotionally allergic to conflict. I sat down. Melanie gave me a small nod of solidarity from the corner. Nobody said anything for a moment. Then Mom spoke. We wanted to talk about how things unraveled and how to fix them. I raised an eyebrow. You want to fix things, Rachel scoffed. This isn't about blame, Mia. No, I said quietly, because it kind of sounds like you still think I burned down a house you doused in gasoline. Mom's face pinched. This is exactly the attitude, Melanie cut in. Stop. All heads turned to her. You don't get to frame this as Mia being difficult, she said. She was excluded, stolen from, humiliated, and now you want what? A group hug and a family prayer circle? Silence. Then Mom looked at me again. I know mistakes were made. I know we hurt you. But, I prompted. She sighed. But, suing your sister was extreme. I laughed, short and bitter. No. What's extreme is using someone's card for a spa trip while pretending they don't exist. Rachel slammed her hand on the table. I was stressed, okay? Because of a wedding you uninvited me from? I didn't uninvite you, she snapped. I just didn't think you'd fit. Into the photos? I asked. Her face reddened. The air in the room shifted. Something cracked open. And then I said the thing I hadn't allowed myself to say out loud, not even to Melanie. I think you were always afraid of me, I said to Rachel. Not because I was mean, but because I saw you for who you really were, and you couldn't stand it. She blinked. You built your whole life around being adored, I continued, and I was the one person who never clapped when you demanded it. Mom opened her mouth to intervene. I'm not here to fight, I said, standing up. I came because I wanted to hear it, just once. I wanted to see if anyone would say, we failed you. Nobody did. So I nodded to Melanie, and we left. On the drive home, the sun dipped behind the horizon like a secret finally released. I rolled down the window, let the cool breeze wash over me. Melanie turned to me at a red light. You okay? Yeah, I said. I think I am. And I meant it. Autumn rolled in with a kind of quiet I didn't know I craved. The trees outside my apartment began shedding their summer bravado, and so did I. The leaves curled gold and red and rust, not dying, just letting go. There was something poetic about that, about loss that wasn't tragic but necessary. I started saying yes to small things again. A weekend trip with Melanie to a cabin in Vermont. Dinner with coworkers I'd always politely declined. A yoga class, even though I hated group breathing. I didn't realize how much of my life I'd shrunk to make space for theirs. Now, without them crowding every corner, there was actual room to breathe. Then one afternoon, in mid-October, I got a package. No sender name, just my name, typed in bold across a padded envelope. Inside was a leather-bound wedding photo album, Rachel's. It wasn't the official one, not the curated glossy book she would have posted on social media. This was something different. Real, candid, almost raw. No captions, no edits. Just image after image of awkward smiles, mismatched decorations, a dress that didn't quite fit the room. The backup venue had harsh overhead lighting. It showed. Everything looked smaller, tighter, more forced, but the photos didn't upset me. What did? Tucked at the very back, the final photo, was a shot of a chair with my name on it. A place card. MIA. The chair was empty. I stared at it for a long time. Was it a peace offering? A guilt gesture? A manipulation? I didn't know. But it didn't matter, because I knew the truth. And the truth wasn't in the pictures. It was in the year that followed, where not one of them called or wrote or owned up to what they'd done. 3 weeks later, I got a job offer in Chicago. It wasn't just a job, it was the job. The kind I'd quietly dreamed about while budgeting Rachel's reception. A non-profit consulting firm that worked with women recovering from financial abuse and control. They wanted me to lead a new initiative. I didn't hesitate. I signed the papers the same day. On my last night before the move, Melanie and I sat on the floor of my half-packed living room, surrounded by boxes and takeout cartons. "You're really doing it," she said. "Yeah, I'm starting over," she grinned. "You're going to be amazing." I looked around, at the taped-up life I was leaving behind. "I think I already am," I said. The next morning, as I was hauling boxes to the moving van, my phone buzzed. A message from a number I hadn't saved, but didn't need to. "Rachel. I saw you're moving. Guess you really hate us that much? Just wanted you to know you'll regret this one day. Family doesn't come back when you shut the door." I stared at it for a moment, then typed, "Exactly. That's why I'm locking it behind me." Then I blocked. The number, I didn't look back. Not at the house. Not at the card table chair with my name on it. Not at the family who only saw my worth when it benefited them. Chicago was cold when I arrived, but I didn't mind. I wore a coat I bought for myself, paid for by a paycheck I earned, living in an apartment I leased, by myself, for myself. The first night, I stood by the window with a mug of tea, watching the lights flicker in the windows of strangers. For the first time in my life, I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was free. Winter came with a grace I didn't expect. The mornings, the Chicago streets were glazed in ice, breath clouding in front of me as I walked to the office. Gloved hands tucked in my coat. The city moved with a rhythm I could finally hear, fast, sharp, unforgiving, and alive. I belonged to no one here, and somehow that made me feel more me than I ever had back home. One night I found myself reading through old emails, not out, of nostalgia, more like proof, evidence of how far I'd come. There were invoices, vendor lists, even a folder labeled Rachel's Mood Board, full of links to things I paid for but never received a thank you for. I could have deleted them, but I didn't. They weren't shame anymore. They were scars that had healed. Then I stumbled upon something I hadn't noticed before. A draft message. Never sent. Dated the night after the wedding. It was from me. "Rachel, I hope you had the day you dreamed of. I hope it made you feel as special as you always needed to feel. I didn't come, not because I was angry, but because I finally knew that my absence would speak louder than my presence ever had. You've built a life where I don't fit. I won't apologize for no longer shrinking myself to squeeze into it. Take care. Maya, I never sent it, but I didn't regret it either. Because the real message had already been delivered, in every boundary I enforced, every silence I chose over explaining myself again. 6 months later, I received a letter from my mother. Handwritten. No return address. The envelope was thick and ivory, like something meant for a wedding. Inside were 3 things: a single-page letter check for $8,032.60 and a note, "From your father." He said it was long overdue. The letter was short. Just 4 lines. "Mia, I'm sorry for the part I played. I see it now. I see you now. I know it doesn't change everything, but I hope it gives you something back. Mom, no excuses, no conditions, just recognition." I sat with that for a long time. Then I put the check in a drawer I didn't use often. Not out of spite, but because that money didn't define me anymore. I had already built something new without it. In the spring, I stood on a small stage at a nonprofit gala, accepting an award for launching a financial independence initiative for women starting over after betrayal, divorce, or economic abuse. I didn't mention Rachel or the wedding, but I did say this: sometimes the people who teach us the most about strength are the ones who tried to take it from us. And the most radical thing we can do is choose ourselves. Fully, unapologetically, and without waiting for permission. The room stood up when I finished. I stood taller. Later that night, Melanie called. She'd been watching the live stream. "Still not over how you dropped that mic like a TED Talk legend?" She laughed. I smiled. "Took me long enough, huh?" "Nah," she said. "You did it at exactly the right time." And this time, I believed her. That night, I walked home alone under city lights. No family drama waiting, no ghost of a sister lurking behind texts. Just me, a woman who paid for someone else's dream and then built her own from scratch.